Every US dollar begins not in a vault, but in quiet fields of cotton waiting for harvest.
These fragile strands of cotton fiber will soon form the backbone of the world's most trusted US dollar currency.
Specialists in the field ensure only the cleanest cotton feeds the tightly controlled stream that will become US dollar banknotes.
Industrial harvesters transform quiet fields into a controlled flow of fiber that will one day print as US dollars.
From scattered bursts on plants, cotton converges into dense streams destined for transformation into US dollar security paper.
Keep it clean, this is dollar grade!
Out here, currency begins as anonymous white blocks tagged and traced for the US dollar's secure supply chain.
Every bundle of fiber is logged and traced, long before it ever resembles a US dollar bill. Alongside cotton, linen fiber adds strength and durability to every circulating US dollar. Each harvested stem is another thread in the unseen fabric that makes US dollar banknotes so hard to tear.
Here, separate streams of cotton and linen converge into a single purpose, building the body of the US dollar.
Hold it right there. Perfect.
Even at the farm gate, every movement is controlled, guarding the future integrity of US dollar currency.
With every tag and strap, the raw materials of the US dollar are locked into a traceable, secure chain.
Loaded with cotton and linen, the first physical layer of the US dollar begins its journey from farm to factory.
Even at this rural threshold, security and traceability are already woven into the path of the US dollar.
The path from field to factory is fixed, monitored, and documented for every fiber that will enter US dollar production.
Moving along quiet back roads, the raw body of the US dollar is already segregated from ordinary freight. Before the fibers ever see a factory, their mass and identity are confirmed for the strict accounting behind every US dollar.
Cleared and confirmed, the very first ingredients of the US dollar are finally ready to enter the guarded world of currency manufacturing.
With its weight confirmed and logged, the first official US dollar fiber convoy is released back onto the road.
From this point forward, every mile the truck travels is documented as part of the US dollar's physical history.
Even in ordinary traffic, this truck carries a uniquely tracked and guarded cargo, the future body of US dollar banknotes.
Inside the cab, every movement of the US dollar's raw fiber is mirrored in a digital trail. Far from the truck, controllers watch every angle, ensuring the US dollar's materials never slip into the shadows.
Multiple cameras and tamper seals turn a simple load of fiber into a tightly supervised artery of the US dollar system.
Periodic, logged checks ensure no one can interfere with the US dollar's raw materials unnoticed.
In a linked chain of screens and checkpoints, the US dollar's journey is verified in real time.
As it nears the city, even the roads the US dollar fibers travel are designated and controlled.
The closer we get to the mill, the fewer vehicles share the path reserved for the US dollar's raw materials.
High fencing and surveillance mark the final stretch toward the guarded birthplace of US dollar banknotes.
Before any gate opens, the mill confirms that this is exactly the US dollar fiber load it expects, and nothing more.
Only when every piece of digital paperwork aligns does the gate unseal for the US dollar's incoming fibers.
Behind these walls, cotton and linen will be reborn as the security paper that carries the US dollar's identity. Each bay feeds a specific line, ensuring that the right fibers reach the right US dollar paper machines.
As the trailer locks to the dock, the outside world is sealed off from the US dollar's controlled interior environment.
With the trailer anchored in place, the US dollar's fibers are ready to cross the final threshold into the mill. At this point, the journey ends for the truck, but begins for the cotton and linen that will become the paper of the US dollar. Under strict eyes and broken only once, the seal opens to admit the US dollar's fibers into the factory world. Piece by piece, compressed blocks of cotton cross the threshold into the US dollar's guarded interior. Inside the shell of the mill, cotton and linen line up in ordered rows, ready to be remade as US dollar paper. Behind this fortified shell, the humble fibers of cotton and linen will gain the strength and identity of the US dollar. Even the outer wall of this compound signals that US dollar production is not an ordinary industrial process.
Access to the inner workings of the US dollar begins with a swipe, a scan, and a lifetime of background checks.
Before they can touch a single fiber, those who make the US dollar must pass through layers of human and machine scrutiny.
A single hallway links the human workforce to the roaring machinery that turns plant fibers into US dollar paper.
From this vantage, the flow of raw cotton and linen can be read like an X-ray of the US dollar's skeleton.
Each scanned code locks a bundle of fiber into a precise destination in the US dollar's internal ecosystem.
Side by side, cotton and linen wait in measured proportions, ready to be cleaned and combined into US dollar paper stock.
Above the intake floor, engineers stand at the threshold where raw fiber begins its transformation into US dollar grade pulp.
Only those cleared at the highest level step through this door, where fibers are scoured to the purity demanded by the US dollar.
From above, the US dollar factory reveals its full anatomy. Separate organs for paper, ink, and printing beating in unison.
Adjacent to the paper mill, a separate fortress houses the machinery that will imprint value onto the US dollar's blank sheets. Different teams, different buildings, yet all are bound by the same stringent rules that govern every US dollar ever printed.
Inside, the paths diverge, one toward printing, one back toward paper, yet both converge around a single product, the US dollar.
Here at this sealed threshold, raw cotton and linen will be stripped of every impurity before they can carry the image of the US dollar. Behind these doors, raw plant fibers are stripped of everything unworthy of becoming US dollar banknote paper. Carefully, the compressed cotton that will become US dollar paper is presented to the first machine in a long chain of purification. Stripped of bindings and packaging, the cotton block now yields its fibers to the hungry teeth of the US dollar's first cleaning stage. Massive drums comb the cotton apart, separating the US dollar's future fibers from the compacted block they arrived in.
Overhead, powerful vacuums strip away loose dust, keeping the US dollar's cotton stream as clean and breathable as possible. Even the air is filtered, capturing microscopic debris before it can threaten machines or the pristine surface of a US dollar note.
Hidden coils listen for even a stray fragment of metal that could tear a screen or mar a future US dollar bill. Anything heavier than the cotton itself is stripped away, leaving only the fibers fit to form US dollar banknote paper.
The linen blend has to be precise. Stronger, longer linen fibers form the skeleton inside the cotton body of each US dollar note.
In carefully measured streams, cotton and linen converge toward the precise recipe that gives the US dollar its unique feel. Precision scales and diligent eyes make sure every batch of pulp begins with the exact balance demanded by the US dollar specification.
Here, cotton and linen are no longer separate. Together, they become the raw fabric of US dollar paper. Even in a world of automation, human eyes still hunt for flaws before the US dollar's fibers are allowed to move ahead.
Machine vision catches what people might miss, flagging any intruder that doesn't belong in US dollar banknote paper. 10-point jets of air surgically remove specks that could later stand out on the clean face of a US dollar note. In this storm of carefully controlled air, the last loose dust is stripped from the US dollar's vital fibers.
After a complex journey, the US dollar's fibers rest only briefly in these silos, perfectly blended and perfectly clean.
Cleaned, blended, and metered, the US dollar's fibers now approach the heart of the process, where dry fluff becomes living pulp.
Sealed from the outside world, the clean fiber for US dollar paper drops toward a roaring vat, where water and motion will tear it back into pulp.
Inside this steel cauldron, cotton and linen surrender their old structure, becoming a uniform pulp that will one day hold the image of the US dollar.
A few percentage points of fiber in water, held within tight limits, define the starting strength of every sheet of US dollar paper.
Coarse screens catch the knots and unbroken clumps before they can scar the smooth surface of a finished US dollar note.
In these spinning cones, hidden grains of sand and grit are flung away, protecting the screens and cylinders that shape US dollar paper.
On the floor, quick checks ensure the pulp's brightness stays true to the US dollar's strict visual standard.
In this quiet reservoir, brightened pulp rests in motion, ready for its fibers to be fine-tuned to US dollar specifications. Between the spinning plates, fibers are brushed and opened, giving each sheet of US dollar paper its toughness without sacrificing flexibility.
Precision sensors watch over the refined pulp, ensuring the US dollar's fibrous backbone behaves the same way, sheet after sheet. These tiny red and blue strands, added under tight control, are one of the first visible signatures tying this pulp to the US dollar. By drawing out hidden air, the approach flow system prepares the US dollar's pulp to lay down as a flawless, bubble-free sheet.
Within these polished lines, every liter of pulp is weighed and measured before it can ever reach the US dollar paper machine.
This sealed box transforms pressurized pulp into a thin, even curtain that will soon become the body of a US dollar note.
At the lip of the head box, everything the US dollar will physically be, fibers, water, and security elements, gathers for its first moment as a continuous sheet. Even inches before formation, operators verify that the US dollar's pulp meets tight process conditions, or the whole sheet must be corrected.
With pulp perfected and ready at the head box, the US dollar's core materials stand on the brink of their most dramatic.
In a fraction of a second, liquid pulp becomes a fragile, moving web. The first moment of US dollar paper taking shape.
As water pours a wee, the US dollar sheet gains just enough strength to carry impressions that will never wash out. Here, invisible in normal light yet crystal clear when held up to a lamp, the watermark is pressed forever into the heart of US dollar paper.
One by one, security threads are set into place, forming bright, undeniable signatures inside every future US dollar note. At the couch roll, the US dollar sheet leaves the wire behind, gaining enough body to withstand the crushing squeeze of the presses.
Between massive rolls, water is squeezed out under tons of pressure, tightening the internal bonds that give US dollar paper its strength.
A second, gentler squeeze refines the surface, preparing each future dollar sheet for the intense heat.
Wrapped over steaming cylinders, the US dollar sheet travels through a controlled climate where heat and air conspire to drive out water without scorching the fibers.
Sensors sweeping the sheet in real time keep the US dollar's drying profile within fractions of a percent across its entire width.
A precise veil of starch-based size strengthens the surface, so every printed US dollar can endure thousands of folds and countless hands. With moisture reduced to a narrow band, the US dollar sheet leaves the heat behind, ready for its final shaping and smoothing.
Under carefully controlled pressure, the US dollar sheet is polished, not too rough to blur ink, not too smooth to feel like anything other than real money.
Hundreds of meters of continuous US dollar paper gather onto a single core, forming the large parent reels that will be cut and handled with great care. In one precise motion, the web jumps to a fresh core, and a full reel of US dollar paper is ready to leave the machine.
Gently swung free of the machine, each massive reel of US dollar paper is carried into a calmer environment to stabilize before cutting.
Here, reels rest and equalize, so the US dollar paper behaves predictably when it is finally slit, cut, and printed. From a single wide reel, the US dollar paper becomes precise, flat sheets, blank canvases of security waiting for ink.
With the paper fully formed, dried, and cut, the US dollar's blank sheets enter a guarded buffer, where automation takes over the flow to printing.
Without a human hand on a steering wheel, the US dollar's blank sheets glide into an automated world of storage and retrieval. Guided by sensors and software, the US dollar's substrate moves through protected arteries that only machines are allowed to travel. In this vertical library, every bundle of blank US dollar substrate has an exact address, waiting for the signal to descend toward the presses.
With a few keystrokes, engineers summon specific stacks of US dollar paper from storage, each move logged and time-stamped.
The same automation that hides the US dollar's blank sheets in the racks now delivers them precisely where the presses demand.
Guided by codes and sensors, each batch of US dollar substrate finds its way to a specific press, ready to receive its first layers of ink. Tireless robotic arms feed the presses with unerring precision, ensuring every US dollar sheet enters the machine exactly the same way.
From a climate-controlled library, plate robots fetch the exact US dollar design needed, ensuring no wrong image ever reaches a press.
Without a wrench lifted, fresh plates snap into place, ready to carry the intricate line work that defines every US dollar bill.
In a secure ink kitchen, recipes locked in software ensure that every drop of
Pumps and sensors keep the ink flowing with mathematical consistency, so the US dollar's colors never drift from their tightly held standards. Dozens of automated subsystems move in concert, forming a tightly choreographed ecosystem built solely to print and handle US dollar notes. Overhead, waiting in stillness, the high-speed conveyors stand ready to pluck US dollar sheets from the press and fly them toward automated stacking.
Stacker and jogger systems square every bundle with machine precision, preparing US dollar sheets for further journeys without ever losing orientation.
Even the US dollar's waste is handled by robots, moved in sealed containers to ensure no unfinished note ever leaves intact.
From here, every automate move, from fiber storage to press deliver, is visualized, recorded.
Layer by layer, robots build exact pallet configurations, whether for blank substrate today or for printed US dollar sheets tomorrow.
Automated climate controls keep temperature, humidity, and air purity locked within narrow bands, so every dollar.
Beyond this threshold, blank US dollar paper will receive its first precise layers of ink, transforming into recognizable currency. One by one, the US dollar's blank sheets are drawn into the press, each aligned within fractions of a millimeter for perfect register.
Ink jumps from plate to blanket to paper in a rapid sequence, laying down the US dollar's subtle tints and detailed line work.
With their front backgrounds now in place, these US dollar sheets are ready to fly overhead toward the next precision stage.
Suspended in line, printed US dollar fronts glide from offset to intaglio, never touched by human hands.
On the intaglio feed table, offset printed US dollar backgrounds pause briefly before meeting the engraved plates that give them tactile life.
Ink fills every engraved line, then is scraped from the surface, leaving only the recessed artwork that will be pressed into the US dollar paper under immense force.
In a single crushing embrace, engraved plates press thick ink into the surface, giving real US dollar notes their unmistakable raised feel. After a controlled pass through warm air, the heavy intaglio ink set, anchoring the US dollar's primary images firmly onto each sheet. With main images fixed in place, stacks of US dollar sheets glide on autonomous carriers towards smaller presses that add seals and serial numbers. Here, colored seals and denomination numerals lock each sheet into its legal identity as a specific type of US dollar note.
With each impact, serial wheels stamp a new identity into the US dollar, unique codes that will be tracked from this room to the banking system. Machine vision checks every seal and serial on every US dollar sheet, comparing them against stored templates in milliseconds. Precision blades square every edge, preparing large US dollar sheets for stacking, banding, and later individual note cutting. Bands lock each stack into a traceable unit, turning loose piles of US dollar sheets into well-defined production lots.
The same robot that can stack blank substrate now builds secure pallets of fully printed US dollar sheets, layer by precise layer.
Wrapped, labeled, and counted, these pallets of printed US dollar sheets are ready to leave the press hall and enter the realm of quality control.
With printing and finishing complete, entire pallets of US dollar sheets now pass into the laboratories, where their every dimension, color, and
through this controlled airlock, each batch of printed US dollar sheets enters a world devoted entirely to measurement and verification. The pallet is opened just enough to draw statistically selected stacks, ensuring the whole run of US dollar sheets is represented in testing.
Defined sampling rules turn a mountain of US dollar sheets into a small, traceable subset that speaks for the entire lot.
Under controlled light and lenses, every printed feature on the US dollar sheet is compared to its digital master, down to the width of a single line. Spectral measurements confirm that the US dollar's iconic green and other inks sit exactly where standards demand. Never too dull, never too bright.
By checking thickness and weight per square meter, technicians ensure every US dollar note begins with the same physical backbone, sheet after sheet.
Under magnification and polarized light, the US dollar's unique blend of cotton, linen, and colored fibers reveals itself in unmistakable patterns.
Under ultraviolet and infrared,
hidden faces of the US dollar emerge, responses that counterfeit inks and papers struggle to imitate.
At microscopic scale, the security thread's lettering and spacing must fall exactly within their bounds, or the batch of US dollar notes is rejected.
By measuring the actual height of the raised ink, technicians confirm that every genuine US dollar feels right to the fingertip.
Pulled, bent, and folded thousands of times, US dollar paper must prove it can survive years of rough circulation. Stain, rub, and wet tests show how the US dollar will look after wallets, pockets, and accidental spills in the real world.
In miniature, the same systems banks use to verify cash are applied here to ensure the US dollar will be flawlessly readable in circulation.
All the numbers tell a single store. This batch of US dollar sheets meets the strict physical and security criteria demanded for release.
With a single, well-documented decision, QC hands this lot of US dollar sheets back to production for final cutting and packing. Freed from the lab, this verified pallet of US dollar sheets rolls under its own robotic power toward the final stages of transformation into circulating money. A small, secure archive of specimens ensures that, years from now, any US dollar lot can be traced back to its original properties. Ahead lies the most guarded zone of all, where certified US dollar sheets are cut, counted, packed, and prepared to leave the factory as real money.
Past one more layer of checks, the approved pallet of US dollar sheets finally enters the zone where they become finished currency.
Inside the finishing hall, specialized machines wait to turn these printed US dollar sheets into precisely cut, counted, and packaged notes. Each stack of US dollar sheets is aligned and programmed so that every future note will be cut to the exact same dimensions. First, each large US dollar sheet is sliced into long strips, preparing the way for the final crosscut that separates individual notes.
In a blur of steel and paper, the large printed layouts finally dissolve into individual US dollar notes. Each tight 100-note strap becomes a basic building block of cash, the standard US dollar bundle used worldwide. 10 bundles come together to form a US dollar brick, an easily handled, clearly labeled unit of high-value currency.
Clear shrink wrap and detailed labels protect and identify each US dollar brick, making any tampering immediately obvious. Inside rugged, reusable crates, US dollar bricks travel as modular units, each recorded with counts and value before ever leaving the line.
Only when weight, count, and seal IDs all align does a crate of US dollar bricks earn the right to roll toward the vault.
Through a door as thick as a bank's, sealed crates of finished US dollar notes cross into deep storage. From a secure console, dispatch orders are translated into crane movements that pull just the required US dollar crates from storage. Crates from the vault group into armored pallets, final, traceable units of finished US dollar cash ready for shipment.
At the dock, pallets of finished US dollar cash are checked one last time before crossing into armored custody.
And this is how modern factories produce the world's most secure currency from start to finish.
From cotton fields and fiber cleaning to printing, lab testing, vault storage, and armored dispatch, this